On this week's episode, we have Noula Diamantopolous, the psychotherapist, author, and artist.
Noula is also known for her recent appearance as the psychologist on the groundbreaking show of ABC's Space 22.
Let's get started. Well, welcome, Noula, to These Lads Are Mental.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Lovely to see you again, Neil, and lovely to meet you, Gary.
You too, Noula. Pleasure.
Well, Noula, you and I know each other, but I won't, give away any of the juicy bits, but maybe if you'd like to start off with a little bit of an introduction around yourself, maybe. Who is Noula?
Who is Noula?
Who is Noula Diamantopoulos?
Well done.
Close?
Done?
No, perfect.
Is it Diam or Diam?
It's well, in English, it's Diam.
Diam. Noula
Yeah.
Diamantopoulos.
So I've got it's really interesting because as you say that, I've just realized that I've got an I am in my surname. One of the most powerful statements you can say on the planet, I am.
Wow.
So be careful what you say after that. So my case is Tapoulos.
It's like I am.
Yeah.
Like if you ever met Princess Diana, you could say,
That's
Di,
right.
I am
Yeah.
Tapoulos.
Tapoulos.
Well, you should put that I am in all your marketing. I mean, like,
Well,
Yeah,
God
the book,
gave you
your
a
book
name
is your book not I am?
no, but
You are, that's you are.
you are.
You
Yeah,
are.
but one of that was funny, Gary. Yeah, I did a you are on that one rather than an I am. But one of my neon artworks is I am.
Oh, nice.
It's three layers of I am here, am I here, here I am. So it's just a play on space and time.
And there's a few layers to you, right? Judging by your bio, psychotherapist, author, artist, your background there is definitely the most colorful one we've had maybe on the show. Can you tell us all about it?
So, all right, from that perspective, because I studied Bachelor of Business and Law Studies as well. I didn't finish my law degree, almost did, and was an international tax advisor in the oil and gas industry. That's where I began. I have studied all my life. I've studied all my life. There's no other way of saying it. And I continue to study. And from that became an artist. So I'm an exhibiting artist and a psychotherapist and an author and more and more and more adventures on the planet. And I'm about to launch, well, not about to launch, and now I'm launching into another realm, which is, I think you guys know about the Because movement, which is about art and mental health, and that's my foundation. Last Sunday, I launched the Miracle Tree with people who've got lived experience, and it was phenomenal. It just blew me away, just surprised me to, so much. But about me, so basically, I come with so many different lenses. So imagine sitting with a person like that. Not only me, there's other people who I'm sure who are therapists who've got different backgrounds as well, because not everybody becomes a psychotherapist from leaving high school, but imagine having all of those different lenses coming at you.
Yeah, I was thinking like you in high school and you went in to meet the guidance counselor, and then you should be a psychotherapist, and I think normally it's like PE teacher or lawyer or a high school teacher.
No, it doesn't. But there are some clues, like when I look at myself as a young person, as a child. If I look at myself in the playground, I was first generation Australian and didn't know how to speak English when I went to school, but I didn't know that I didn't know English. So that's another layer there, because they would speak to me and I would just speak back, and I thought it was wonderful. Like I just intuited what they were saying to me, right? So there was no, because people have asked me, well, was that confusing? And I wasn't confused. I was very.
So what you heard English, but
yes. And then I just responded in Greek.
In Greek, wow.
Yeah.
But you just thought that was normal converse.
Yeah,
right?
I didn't have it was like, and I think what was happening there was a lot of the gestural communication, the nonverbal communication was present, and that was what I was tuning into. But also, I do remember in the playground at primary school, all those other kids, that were not accepted by the Australians, because we were going through a period of time in our history of assimilation, like we weren't supposed to speak another language. They thought that our brain couldn't handle that. My parents, by the way, spoke 5 languages.
Wow.
Anyway, and those people always were kind of in just a little nook in the playground and feeling sad, just feeling, the word I would have for it is like they were shrunken. So I would spend a lot of my time with them. And I had I'm very, extrovert type of personality, very playful, very creative, and created all sorts of different things in the playground, created theater sets with stones. So that it's been with me at all times. And when I look, as I move on, as I get older and stuff, and I have always been the person that likes to, if somebody's confused about something like in the classroom or whatever, I would become the teacher. Now, that didn't mean that I was masterful. I was probably more of a smart ass. I was like, yeah, I'll tell you what that means. So that's followed me through, even in my career as an international tax advisor, became a mentor. So you can see the lineage of, teacher, mentor, advisor. My role was an advisor, right? It's all aligned. So moving into psychotherapy is actually, looking back on it, a very natural thing for me, I'd become a coach before that.
And thinking, going back to your high school or your primary school days, when was that in Australia, if you don't mind me asking? And like, what was Australia like? Because, was it a very different place to what we are now, which is very multicultural? I'm Irish, Gary's Scottish, we're a case in point. What was Australia like back then?
Yeah, it was okay. So just to put it in context, when I was younger, long hair, long curly hair, dark skin, because I'm out in the sun a lot, So I look also very different to the community, which is, to all the other kids. And back in those days, there was non-inclusiveness, of people who looked different. And to the point that it was also, we talk about bullying today, it was definitely bullying back there. I would be standing at attention in the assembly and someone would just randomly kick me. And there was a lot, or pull my hair, stuff like that, and then it became, I remember there was a time that it was actually frightening because there was an incident where I pushed back on a girl that had hit me, just pushed back.
Yeah.
Her mum came to pick her up and she told her mum, and then her mum got upset with me. So now I'm scared. I don't have any kind of it was like, I can't even do that because I'll get in trouble again.
Why?
Yeah, it was interesting times when I look back on it, and it's still, to be honest with you, those times in my life are still unfolding for me, because I'm starting to spend a little bit of time reflecting on that, because those are what we call lived experiences. And whereas previously my attitude was, well, that's what made me who I am today, look at that, whatever, suck it up kind of attitude. Now it's a bit more, take in what you went through, take in what your experiences were like, do what you ask others to do, when they come to see you in clinical practice, do that for yourself too, and honor your journey, and don't also now, neglect that of yourself. You'd already been neglected. And the consequences of that is I end up neglecting myself.
It's interesting with bullying, isn't it? Because Noula's got the most gorgeous curly hair, and I can imagine when you're a kid, any kid, like if you have a feature that's slightly different, you're almost vilified for it when you're younger. It's only when you grow older when you realize, God, I wouldn't change one piece of me, and you're proud of who you are. But it's hard to do that when you're a 7-year-old on the schoolyard, right?
Impossible. And you don't have, I didn't have both my parents were working. I didn't have a situation where anybody was, was very, grew up very independent. There was no being taken to school, or dropped off or being picked up. It was, very different.
Yeah, you were on your own. When I was younger, I was bullied as well in school for my nose. And people used to go like that to me. And then I used to, because I have big eyes as well, I used to get that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes you move past that as you grow older. And as you were saying, you kind of suck it up and you're like, I probably built this thing of like, I'll show them, your whole life is built around trying to get back to that 8-year-old little fucker on the schoolyard that called you that. But it can catch up on you, right? When you get older, and I think that's what actually happened to me. There was a bullying thing in my life 5 years ago where it almost opened up that can of worms again, which I thought was just gone, but it wasn't. It was really just dormant, right? Do you see that a lot in the people that you work with, that unresolved issues like that can come back to haunt you?
Oh, most definitely, which is why, I do the work on myself as well, not just, I am equal to whoever comes, to see me. And as I do the work on myself, I get a deeper understanding, not only of myself, but also of others, and my compassion for others deepen, and I'm able to explore with a really affectionate kind of sense of sitting with another, not because I went through it myself, but my sensibilities are more awakened to it. It's not an attitude of, is that really an issue, for example?
Yeah.
Of course it's an issue. What happens in childhood when the brain is still developing, it's, we talk about neuroplasticity. Well, it's being neuroplasticized. Is that a word, Gary?
We'll see it as. See it as.
Yeah. So it's being formed. It's being formed, and it's taking in information at a subconscious level as well, which then impacts the way that we behave. And as adults, we try to rationalize, because we've got a prefrontal cortex that's fully formed now. We try to rationalize our, responses or reactions without reflection. Like, well, it's because you said this, that's why I'm doing this, and it's your fault. We externalize it. But we need to, learning to reflect is a powerful tool to have on hand, and to be able to sit with something for a moment and go, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't really understand this right now. This is something that I can feel that is disturbing, but I really want to spend some time to unfold that and figure it out. Give, time out for a moment or so. And then the question then becomes, well, how do you reflect? Well, it's going to bring me to the arts, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very easy to start shifting the blame rather than you actually tackling what's actually going on with you. And I was going to ask, even with your title, the psychotherapist, we've not actually heard that. We've heard of psychologist, psychiatrist. Could you just explain maybe the difference between?
Yeah, so a psychologist does a number of years at university and knows how to diagnose, from the DSM-5, all of the mental health maladies, which I really don't like any of those terms that I've just spat out. But anyway, and also does therapy, and they usually do what's called CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, what we call talking therapy, also known as a top-down approach, which means that we're using our head to make changes to ourselves behaviorally, trying to learn how to regulate our emotions, how to think better, more clearly, etc., things like that. The psychotherapist has a different kind of training. So their training is broader and isn't only a style, cognitive or talking therapy. A psychotherapist works with a person in a variety of different modalities. And in my case, somatic based, which is working through the body, which is called bottom up. So we're using the body to affect change. At the end of the day, it's a brain, we are a brain body. That's not two words, that's one word. We are a brain body, they're not separate. And because talking alone is not going to resolve trauma, trauma is in the body. So you can't will it away. You can get an understanding of it by talking about it. But when you want to process your trauma, process means to move it out of your system. Process means to have it integrated within you, because trauma are parts of us that are not integrated. They're things that have happened in the past that have not been able to be date stamped and filed away as the past. So they're roaming rogue. These memories are roaming rogue in us somatically. And it's one of the primary functions of the brain to keep us alive, our survival. So those little memories, they're called implicit memories, those memories hold all information that's sensory, smells like, looks like, tastes like, feels like, sounds like, doesn't have any language. And then what happens is you find yourself in front of your boss, for example, and there's a particular look that they give you. The nervous system recalls that look as dangerous and triggers you, and your heart starts racing, for example. It's one of the things that could happen, right? So that's why I'm saying that it's not, you can't talk your way out of that. Part of working somatically is to identify the triggers, what's going on with your body. And I call it reverse engineering. And then we use the body to inform the brain that everything not only is okay, but to be able to process that memory so that it does become integrated, which means date stamped and filed away. It doesn't take the memory away, of course, but that charge that memory gives us no longer has the negative effect
that it used to.
That it used to, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard someone else put it into another analogy of like, the saber-tooth tiger that back in the, thousands of years ago as humans, like we needed that reaction because your life would literally be on the line like that quite regularly when you're out hunting, for example. So like if you did see a scary animal, you had to go into fight or flight mode, which is an adrenaline rush and that. And that's still ingrained in our DNA. But what's happened nowadays is that, as you were saying, you get a bad email from somebody. That's the equivalent of the saber-tooth tiger scenario to our ancestors, 10, 20,000 years ago. But our brains and bodies maybe haven't evolved as much to identify that that's actually not life-threatening. But when you're in the throes of that, something as trivial as an email.
The threat is different now. It's not a, your saber-tooth tiger now is your boss.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, a lot of people could relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're talking about the reptilian brain. So the brain's evolved in, it's called the triune brain. That it's got the reptilian, which is the brain stem. It's the mammalian, which is in the middle part of the brain, and then it's the neocortex. So the reptilian, which was that's the only thing that was in existence right at the beginning. Absolutely, if we were to survive, we had to be able to outrun something, to outfight something. So that's your, fight, flight. And by the way, we don't choose this. This is another thing that's very interesting about these adaptive responses to survival. We don't choose them. The nervous system chooses it. This is out of our control. It shuts everything else down and changes our whole physiology, whether it's pumping blood to our extremities so that we can, or adrenaline through us, and shuts down digestion. So it really moves all the energy to fight, flight. The other one, of course, is freeze, which is like this, which is a contained kind of put all your energy to don't move. The reason for that one is that if they saw that saber tooth, just on the other side of the bushes over there, that saber tooth is looking for movement. So it's like, don't even blink. And the other one that we have, which is not as often spoken about, is when we dissociate, when we play dead, for example, And that one, the reason why we have that one is if the saber-tooth finally caught up to us and our nervous system then shuts us all down, we would have hardly any breath, hardly any heartbeat. For all intents and purposes, we would seem dead to the saber. The saber would come over and smell us and go, this is dead, because, sabers, they're organic. They don't eat dead food. So they go away.
Wow.
I know.
So with that, does that look like, let's say, modern times people
freeze?
Yeah, freeze, but also like relationships, like kind of severing relations, self-sabotaging things. Is that how that kind of manifests today?
Yeah, there's different kinds of things because we've got, well, it gets a little bit more complex than that, because we've got then theories of attachment, and whether we become
codependency and things like that.
Yeah, avoidant, and stuff like that, which we won't get into that because it gets a little bit like messy.
Yeah, well, it's a good segue, because one of our earlier questions was, you and I met each other on ABC's groundbreaking documentary Space 22. Last week we had a few of the participants on. We had Viv, Ray, and Tracy, and we had a good laugh there. Well, I was talking through the issues of mental health. Can you tell us what that was like for you? Obviously, you were involved from your psychotherapist background and also the art, because the show was about art therapy. I mean, what was that like for you going on the show? Was it exactly what you thought it was, or did it really spark some new ideas, or were you taken aback by how it all went down? Because it was really a first of its kind. It's a
first of its kind, and it was both exciting and daunting. It was like, I loved, the idea of it. And I loved that, I got selected. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, definitely. This is.
Sorry, did you have to, did someone approach you for that, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it just came out of the blue. I just had
quality.
Yeah, I know. And it was from the BBC, and I'm like, and they were talking to me about this show, and it was Bev actually,
Oh yeah, Bev. Yeah.
and they were talking about the show, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about, but anyway, sounds good.
I'm in. Sign me up.
And then, anyway, so I got in, and then when I arrived, it was very quick, the whole thing, because I was towards the end, like you guys, I think were already selected. And when I, arrived on set, and everybody was beautiful and welcoming, and anyway, up to and continuing, throughout the whole experience. I remember saying to Bev, okay, so, what do you want me to say? Oh, just whatever comes naturally, right?
No pressure.
No pressure, right? And I'm going, so I didn't actually understand, I know that it was an observational documentary. I didn't realize that you would be given no guidance whatsoever.
Yeah.
Zero. Like,
there's no script.
There's no script. There's nothing. So then I remember the first day too, like I'm there meeting Nat for the first time. We're talking, and, they bring us into the Space 22 set. We're sitting on that
bench, kitchen bench kind of thing.
No, not the bench, the stage.
The stage, right? Yeah.
The stage there, and they said, okay, so we're going to be bringing in everybody, one at a time, and you're just going to welcome them in. Okay, so welcome them in. I'm looking at, Nat, welcome. Do you know how to welcome someone in? It's like, what do we do? Hi, like, because it's also COVID. Do we handshake? Do we, blah blah blah.
Bearing in mind that Nat Bass has like been in TV for donkey's years, whereas like was that your first time on TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then we didn't know, like, so we welcomed them in. Hi, how are you? Or whatever. And then we were kind of hanging because we didn't realize we would have so much time with each person. It wasn't like whatever 3-5 minutes. It was something like 25 minutes. It's like, okay, so
I better ask some questions.
what are you saying? Yeah. Anyway, and then they would say, okay, so Noula, you're gonna do this next. And as I was doing things, this is in the first half day of my half day. And I would say, okay, do you want me to say more? So this is after I've been, no, just be you. And I go, okay. I mean, do you want me to say maybe less? No, just be you. Yeah. You see, which version of me do you want here right now? Just be you. So that was a most inviting, welcoming comment that I'd ever received in my whole life.
Just like to just be you.
But freedom, that's pretty good, to be fair. I think that's quite good.
Think about it, Gary, because, we've just come from a conversation where I'm talking about, being little, and I'm not allowed to be me.
Yeah.
And now, come a couple of years later,
you've got the BBC saying you've got free license to say whatever you want.
Free license. So then I had to figure it. And the way I figured it was like, why am I here? I'm here for the 7 participants. What are you going to do for anything and everything that they need me to be? You just be that. You just be that. And it's going to look maybe sometime, because the pressure I was feeling at some point was, oh my God, this is going to be aired on television, right? I've got my colleagues and people I don't know, people I know, people I don't know. Am I going to disappoint people? Am I going to disappoint my psychotherapy community? Am I going to be judged? All of those things that came in, and I had to handle them really, really quickly, which I did. Yeah.
I mean, you were like, I just found you amazing. You're like my Aussie surrogate mum over here. Like, I thought you were fantastic, so authentic in everything that you did. And you honestly, you were even as a host, like I just saw you and Nat as like the duo hosts, and together you guys just were fantastic, and how you nurtured everybody. You kind of mentioned some things later on and just made me think of the word nurture, because that's obviously carried with every part of your life since you were on that schoolyard to, helping 7 adults piece their life together through art. So no mean feat. It was amazing to have you there. We're extremely lucky to have you on the show itself, and which was obviously around mental health. So we normally ask people like, well, what does mental health mean to you? Before going into that show, maybe during and post, did that alter for you, or does it stay the same, that you still feel what mental health is?
I think I feel even more, I've become more strong-minded now about it, having gone through that, because, we all went through that observational documentary, and not only were you and the 6 others, affected by it, so was I and Nat and Drew and the executives, it goes everywhere. It goes to all of us, you know.
Yeah, we had like the camera guys behind, like crying, like they're sharing stories about their past. It was really, there was 40 or 50 people on the set, and we were all in it together, really, weren't we?
Yeah. So there's the ripple effect of all of it, you know. There's so much love in that space. I mean, they didn't, you know, our series came down to about, what was it, 3 hours, but we were filming for, what was it, 11 days?
Yeah, for over 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot that didn't get shown, right? And it was beautiful and exciting and intense. And we all took a deep dive in the unknown. We didn't know what was going to be unfolding moment to moment, you know, how to be with each other. And you know, we had some good fun times as well, like, you know, Tracy and the tissue story, right?
Yeah, that was about basically Tracy had a moment where she needed to cry, and then she asked Noula for a tissue she didn't have, and she said, "What do you mean? This is a mental health show with a psychotherapist on it, and you don't even have tissues?" Like, what?
That went to air. But what you didn't see is I've got my mic on and I'm going, I'm sure the tissues are coming really soon now.
Hello, backstage, we need tissues.
I did that about 3 times. Nada.
I mean, and you and I shared a very special moment as well,
Yes.
Noula, when I had an episode about about the halfway mark, when we had Wendy Sharp do the art. Well, yeah, hers was the painting, the art, which is like maybe more the traditional side versus some of the other mediums that we did. And that Ray said that last week on the last week's episode, that was actually probably the most confronting element of the show for all of us, because it really got down to the weeds of, you know, our past and emotions and things like that. And it obviously it spilled over for me at that moment. But interesting, you talk about somatic, which is your body and in your brain.
Yeah.
I had an episode, not because of anything that was happening directly to me. My periphery saw Mohammed, who was having a bit of a episode. And because I saw him having an episode, my brain, going back to the saber-tooth tiger kind of analogy, thought, oh, you're having an episode now. And then I start going into episode. That's never happened to me before. It's always been something in my own periphery that has led me to being a bit anxious. That was the first time ever where like an external party influenced how it went. And that was quite frightening. And what was amazing about Noula, again, going back to her nurturing, is like, as I was going through this, and when anyone that goes through this, your vision becomes very narrow. You know, all you can think about is, oh shit, like this. You don't think about anything else really. And Noula came over and was able to spot it within, I don't know, for me it felt like probably minutes, but for you it was probably a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
She was able to spot straight away that something wasn't going on with me, which was amazing for me, because it's an internal thing, but there's probably somatic things that I'm doing that, you know, you can spot that something's wrong. So yeah, I'm eternally grateful for you. And like, I thought after that episode, obviously it's not nice having a panic attack, but if you've got someone like a Noula there, like, which I've never had before in my life, normally you're in a schoolroom or you're in an office scenario, but to have you actually there hand hold me through the process was honestly, like, I felt so lucky about that.
I mean, realistically, not everyone's got a Noula by their side. So what would in a situation like that, Noula, for someone who's having a panic attack and by themselves, what sort of tips or things they can do?
That's a really great question, Karen, and I can give you a few tips right now for people to take away with them. And I can say that one of them, just to plug out the observational documentary, if you go watch that series, you will see a few already, right? And I know, actually, Neil, to give you some feedback, that people who've seen that show have written back to me, emailed me, saying that they're using that in their life.
Wow.
A technique in their life. So well done to us to be able to have the courage to be present for that and to do that. But basically, when you recognize that something is overwhelming you, and you will have a different type of, the first thing is self-awareness about what do you notice? Is your heart rate changing? Like, is it increasing or decreasing, for that matter? You know, what's your body temperature like? You know, what's your breathing like? What does your body feel like? Is it tensing up? You know, what are you pulled to do? Like, do you want to run away? Do you want to argue? Is it anger? You know, is that emotion coming up? The first thing is self-awareness. As you notice that, what I want people to recognize is that you're being pulled out of present time. I know that you're conscious. I know that you know where you are, but your prefrontal cortex is going offline. The prefrontal cortex is the one that has clarity of thinking, can, you know, walk, navigate different things, find solutions, is creative, all of that kind of thing. That's going offline. Why? Because the survival, the adaptive survival behavior is coming on. And that's got priority over everything in our system. Once you recognize that and also know it's not your fault, something is happening for your survival, even though it's a false alarm. So a quick thing that you can do, and it may take a few moments or whatever for you to recognize everything that I've just said, because, you know, we're still in this kind of place where we don't have any agency. But if you can recall that and you know, bring that to your forefront to go, wait a second, I need to do something. I need to take control of what's going on, and then I'll figure out what the solution is going to be. There's usually bathrooms wherever you'll usually be able to find a bathroom. So getting cold water in your hand and putting your head into it, right, like that, not splashing, it goes, water goes everywhere, but putting your head into your cupped hands, and you do that 2 or 3 times because your body temperature may be making it too hot. The coldness on your face, it's called the dive effect. The fact that you've got your eyes closed, so it's dark and cold over them, the brain thinks that you've taken a dive underwater. And when we take a dive underwater, it reduces your heart rate and your body temperature. So you start somatically being able to breathe more easily, right? Things are calming down. You can still be upset about what just happened. You can still have that, but there's something that we call the window of tolerance. And everybody's window of tolerance, whatever the bandwidth is different. Someone who's experienced trauma in life, their window of tolerance may be here. Someone who's like a, you know, a monk or whatever, his window of tolerance is like this. So it's about having all the feels in here. We have all the feels in here so that you can have anger, joy, happiness, da, 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 da. But what happens is that when our nervous system gets triggered and is trying to warn you that you're not safe, we go outside of our window of tolerance because it's trying to get you to act because it feels that it's not safe, but it's a false alarm. So we're creating agency in the first instance, and every time we do that, by the way, your window of tolerance begins to grow. It gets bigger. So it's not just a band-aid effect. So I don't want people to feel that not only have they got issues that they're dealing with in their life, now they've got to be doing this for the rest of their life. No. I mean, that's one technique. There's the one that we showed with you, Neil, on the show, which was to tense the thighs. So I'm just not going to say any more about that, so they can go watch the show, right? And,
sounds raunchy.
right? That doesn't it?
Tense your
Right?
thighs.
Yeah, tense your thighs, yeah. But everything is about bringing you in present time. And we know that breath work will also help you elongating your exhale. There are many, many, many somatic-based techniques where you can take agency. And if people want to learn a little bit more about it, they can Google the word vagus nerve, because it's the vagus nerve that is, you know, if you can tone the vagus nerve, then you're going to be able to control these things. Then you can progress mindfully after you've brought yourself back into present time.
The breathing is one of the most powerful I've found, from most particular when you're exercising. Obviously your nervous system, especially lifting heavy weights or sprinting, etc., you're using the nervous system quite a lot. And I found that if you spend 3 to 5 minutes post session just doing some like easy breathing, 2 or 3 seconds in, 6 to 8 seconds out for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, the recovery time between sessions is dramatically improved. It's almost just, you've just said to yourself, because a lot of people will finish a gym session, say they go on a lunch break at work, they'll quickly go to a locker, grab their stuff, go straight to work. So in this stressful environment, from which obviously exercise, you sort of use as a de-stressor often, but you're still stressing the body, and at the end of the day, stress is stress. So then I'm leaving straight into the work environment, maybe back on emails, back into the hustle bustle. So never really get a chance to tell the brain, right now, start recovery process from what we've just done. And I found that 3 to 5 minutes post session, just usually lying down, my feet on a bench or something like that, and just going through that is incredible.
I love it. I love it. And for some people, breath can also be a trigger.
Yep.
So for those people, if I can suggest an idea that you can explore, and that's singing.
Okay.
because singing will automatically change your breath
Yeah.
without you consciously having, to
As
do
in
it.
more natural, as in it just becomes natural.
Well, you're not thinking about,
Right. Okay.
what it is that you're doing,
Yeah.
right? But it's actually, it is doing that, because you have to take in from your, your deep belly, your bellows, to bring out a note. And then your chest expands as well. And then when you throw a note out there, you're elongating it,
You also have to think about the words, which
Yes,
is a
prefrontal
prefrontal cortex thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I find like with breath work works when you're in a calm state to maybe keep it at bay. But if you're on the cusp of an episode, trying to meditate or slow down your breath sometimes can actually be very
I can
difficult.
imagine that. Yeah.
You're like, which is hard. But I think you also mentioned before, spotting is another good one that helps, right?
Yeah, brain spotting it's a psychotherapeutic modality that helps to resolve trauma. And I'm actually a brain spotting trainer in the Australasia Pacific area. And one of the things that I did on the show, and I'm not sure that it was shown, but yeah, we did it. And it was more to work with what I call the positive neurocircuitry of our innate resilience that we already have, but we may not be aware of it, or we may not be conscious of that innate resilience that we have, because something has got us through different things in life, and we just get through it, but it's actually there. So what I would invite you and some others to do was to either bring in a personal place that you appreciate, or someone of appreciation. Appreciation is a very powerful word, because if you think about it, and maybe this is me being, my Bachelor of Business day, because depreciation is not a good word. Right?
Less for tax.
That's right. It's good for a tax deduction, but other than that. So
I mean, we're all depreciating, really, aren't we, as we age?
But to be able to recall who it is that we have in our lives that appreciate us, who we appreciate, who uplifts us, who is supportive, and we have them, whether they're present with us or no longer with us, or places that are like that. Now, what happens is that you've got the idea of that person or place, and then you get a somatic response to that, right? And so if I ask you, where do you notice that in your body? You may notice it, whatever, you may be in your heart space here. Now you've got this thought, the person, and this somatic cue, and the brain spot is a place in your field of vision that is associated to the way that you're feeling. So if you were to look left, and if I asked you the question, is that where you notice that appreciative feeling in your chest? It's all, no one's going to tell you where it is. You're going to go, no, it's not there. What about here? Oh my gosh, it's here. What's just happened? It just expanded. It just grew. Keep looking at that spot. Now that spot is portable. Once you've grounded that, once you've found it and embodied that spot, that's with you at all times. You're looking for one right now, Neil? I just noticed you.
Because you did it. I've done it with you before, and my eye went straight to where.
Yeah, that's it. And you can use that anytime. You can be on a bus, you can be whatever, and you can recall that. And the idea of us being alone dealing with things evaporates, because that to me is a lot about when we have experienced different overwhelming, things in our life, and then something happens in a current. In this present moment, we can feel like that. On top of that, we can feel helpless.
And once you've found that spot, the next part is you go from top to bottom, is it? Or do you pick things around you, or what way do you like to normally do?
Yeah. So what I do, thank you so much. I'm so impressed that you remember all this stuff, Neil. There you go.
Oh, well, I use them. That's why.
Right. Okay.
And the spotting for me is definitely something that's worked, and because there is lots of different things you can do in different parts, but spotting is definitely something that's helped me in the actual moment. So I'm talking like minutes before something, or if I'm right in the thick of it, that's actually one that I've actually used. And how I see it is like you've got a toolkit.
Yes.
You need to have like plenty of these things in there. Yeah, because like in a certain scenario, the breathwork works. Like going to bed at night, box breathing helps with me.
Yeah.
But box breathing, I won't do it well, sometimes I do it in the moment, but I feel the spotting just takes my attention away from whatever the thing is.
It's called mindful processing. And when it comes to neuroplasticity, just to add that little spin on it as well, is nothing will change without having a focus on it. And that's what you're doing. You're focusing your attention on something that the brain is aware of. And then that grows that positive neurocircuitry wiring for you, which becomes supportive while you're dealing with, the other stuff. So that's building capacity as well, right? And so, we sequence it, and you're spot on about, there's a whole bunch of tools, and we've got to figure out, everybody's an individual. We've got to figure out, when do you use the tool at what point in time along the continuum of the experience that you're having, whether you've caught it early on, whether you're midway through it, or whether you've gone over the top, right? So it's not that these tools will fail, it's knowing when they will, when they are appropriate, and you tweak them for you. But in the sequencing of this agency way of working with your nervous system, when you're doing the brain spotting and you've done that, then to bring yourself, more deeply online, it's like, you name 5 random things in a color that you've just chosen, 5 things that are in blue. So now it's called, you're externalizing. So you're moving away from what's happening from your interior, which the brain spot is already allowing you to do, and bringing up positive expression to you. But now you're taking your whole state of being external, and you go, okay, there's a blue couch over there, there's a blue painting over there. But if you notice yourself going, there's a blue thingamajig here and a blue what's-a-majig there, you're not online. So you stay until you're able to articulate, because your language is not coming, right? So there's 5 things that you choose of a random color, and then 2 sounds, which I find the most powerful. So when you stop and you go, okay, I've got to name 2 sounds, and it will, without a doubt, look something like this. I can hear a saw. And a car. You have to become so present, and you're so still. It's almost like the freeze response. You are really here right now. We're really in the moment.
That is, even when you listen like that, you like, it just shows you when you're going through life, there's so much going on that you're not even thinking of. And when you actually slow down to listen, there's so many different things you can hear in that moment that you just don't come into your normal periphery during that time. So like, oh, I heard a fly, or
that's right,
there's a creak in the wood, I can hear the trees, but you won't hear that just normally. It's only when you really concentrate that you actually do hear it.
You can do that. I mean, people do it. I think we do it all the time without even thinking, in a different way. Well, say you're in a busy pub, busy restaurant, and you're having a little bit of a nosy, and you hear someone's conversation.
Yeah,
you can almost siphon that one conversation out of 1,000 people, and you've heard the whole story, and you're thinking, again, that's the exact same thing, but not in the same way for the same outcome. But we do it all the time.
There's also other people who are on the other side of that, who think that no one else can hear them.
Oh, yeah, that's a different one.
That too, yeah.
Well, there's a couple other things as well, but we'll move on next week. But it was primal scream is another one that I've recently come across, which is like, especially if you're feeling anger and like that, is to let out a huge scream no matter where you are. And that's the whole point. You have to do it even if it's in a public area, which is a bit weird. And like, maybe it's useful to get some training on when to do it, because that is quite confronting. But I've had to do that with some of the work I've been doing, where you're shouting in the middle of a field, and then it's like, what's wrong with that? But it's a great tool to let go of some pent up anger and emotion and stuff like that. So that's quite good. And just also the other thing about talking your way out of it, which I know you speak about on the show, I think, Noula, like, we can't talk our way out of these things. However, you've mentioned there's a pathway towards where your water spills over the edge, let's say. There are things that you can verbalize in the beginning to kind of like chop it at the knees, as it were.
Yeah.
That's where things like gratitude, thanking yourself, which I know is getting a lot of attention these days, good. But also you mentioned thinking of a fond thing, place.
Yeah.
And I've been working with my coach around this, and like, I've got an image of my son, and I've got an image of my granddad, who was a huge mentor to me. So I've actually used the photo of my granddad, who's now no longer with us, but because when I look at him, I just smile, and then I think, God, would he be proud of me? And that definitely, I found, has helped way more than what I would have thought of, because I was a very negative nanny. Like, I was like, you're shit, you're not good enough, da, 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 da. And if you're in that boat, having just an image saved on your phone is actually really powerful.
Totally. And to have it embodied, so it's not just a it's not just a thought that you have, it's a feeling that you're experiencing. That's the powerhouse. You're connecting the two. That's what we call coherence. It's the brain body connecting. It's not your will just saying, this is how, or positive thinking. It's together with the body. That's where we powerhouse it. And that's where the brain spotting comes in, because then we find that spot in the field of vision, and that anchors it, in a way. So
I just read that when I was doing a bit of research, and it said you've got the Quest technique. So I thought I'd like to know about it.
Yeah, Quest is my gallery asked me if because I also do performance art, so I do large scale mosaics, like I did a 60 square meter one in George Street, which was for domestic violence, made out of jar lids for an organization called Too Good, and Amex were involved, and Lend-Lease were involved for that one. I do mosaic. Well, that was the mosaics. I do neon signs. I try to paint. I do encaustics, which I love doing, and drawing, many different types of art forms. And I was asked by my gallery, do you think you can pull from your therapy, some kind, an art something? So it's a performance art called Quest. And what it is a dialogue of questions only, no answers, just questions. And what we created was a space that was, pink is one of my signature colors, and we had pink neons infused in the space. There was a rug, wooden tables. I had made some of those Rochard, those ink splotches of paper, Yeah. People would come in silence and sit in front of me on the rug, and they would have the opportunity of spending time with me, where they would ask 5 questions and I would respond with 5. So it's a total of 10 questions. And so they might say something like, how are you today? And I might respond by saying, why do you care?
So it's like a normal conversation, everyday conversation.
An everyday
Sydney, anyway.
But it was written, it was in silence, it was on the splotch paper, it was passed to me, it comes to me, the question becomes mine. So I respond back. I remember that person saying something to me, something like, shouldn't we be polite, or something like that. Then I responded back by saying, is polite the same as authentic? So we went very deep, very quickly, right? It's a very beautiful process. And I work with some corporates to do Quest with them as for team building stuff, and usually we work on a particular topic. We don't intend it, but usually when I work a full day with a corporate, and I'm seeing people every 15 minutes, there's a theme that comes out, and it's a surprise, I know you will be: stress, life-work balance, that kind of stuff. And that comes out. So it's almost like a beautiful way of researching. By not having answers, you're actually getting guidance through the series of questions. One of the most beautiful ones that I ever experienced, I was invited by the Melbourne Contemporary Art Fair. I was director's choice to perform Quest there. And a woman came up, and her first question is it my fault? And I wrote back saying, are you responsible? Then what happened was, in the next few series of questions, I realized this woman was dying. I don't remember the questions, but it was very clear that she was dying. And the last few questions that we had then was, my question to her was, are you still able to love? And her question was something like, is there anything else, or something like that. And then my final question to her was, does anything else then matter?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're both, like, I didn't know that was going to come out of me, right? That was a life-changing moment.
And that was within 10 questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah.
10 questions, right? And we cried, there was tears, and we hugged, because she gifted me.
Dude, that's goosebumps.
So I know it was, and that's in my book called You Are That Is Creative.
You Are That Is Creative, yeah, definitely give that a mention.
Well, at the point, you don't have, sometimes there's questions that don't need to be asked or are answered,
How do you answer a question like that, right?
Well, do you know, there's a bit of a twist on this Quest technique. For years, me and my mates have been playing a drinking game called the Question Game. You should definitely try it out.
Right.
Basically, say 4 to 20 people can play it. All you need to do is ask a question, and the only rules are basically you need to look at the person you're going to ask the question to, and the only rule is they have to ask back only with a question, any question. So I could say, Neil, how old are you? Neil could turn to you and say, what day is it tomorrow? You could turn, but then what happens is there's so many questions you can ask, obviously, but your brain just fucks off.
Right.
You go, like we've done it many times. Your brain just says randomly things. Like my friend one day just turned around to me and says, my dad's called Charlie. I'm like, what? So that's the rule. If you get it wrong, you have a drink. So it's like,
but it's the same with greetings. We greet greetings with questions. It's weird. Like, how are you? Oh, how you going? Yeah, how are things? Oh yeah, how are you? How's the weather? Oh, like, you don't go, oh no, yeah, I'm fine. I've had like so and so. It's so weird how we greet if you actually take that down.
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on with you, Noula, just for more perspective, is a lot of tools. We get a lot of guests on, we talk about tools and all of that. And I think nowadays we're always looking for shortcuts and tips and tricks on how to do things. And one thing I think of the 20 odd episodes we've done is we're starting to get quite a big toolkit of things people can do for mental health. But a lot of the things require a bit of focus or the ability to focus, like focus on a breathing, focus on a sound, focus it in the moment. And I'm from personal experience and from talking to others, I think in 2022, distraction and focus are two big things. I mean, we've got so many things to distract us, and actually being able to focus on the simplest of tasks or the simplest of conversations. And I can speak again for myself, even try to be a good listener is a challenge because your brain's going 100 miles per hour. I mean, technology is a part of that 100%. Social media, being on our phones, lots of information, and from everyone wants, like you said, you're a lifelong learner. Yeah. I feel the same way about myself, but often I feel it's to my own detriment when I want to learn so much that my mind is consumed with so much information. I'm always learning too much. How do you see it from your expertise of becoming more present in the moment and try to eliminate distractions or become more focused?
I would invite people to become curious.
Curious. Okay.
Because curious is an activity.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us something to do, because a lot of the hiccups that we have is that we can't do nothing.
Yep.
But being curious. So I'm here and I'm curious, about you, Gary, and I'm curious about Neil. I'm curious about the comments that you're making. Same thing with you, Neil. So that curiosity keeps me actively engaged in you and not thinking about what am I going to eat for lunch. But also in being, it is a beautiful quality to engage with, one of curiosity, because it means that I'm interested. I want to know, I want to get to know you, how you're thinking, what your life experiences are. I'm seeking to understand you at a deeper level as a human, right? And from that, there's always going to be gifts in return, always. And that's how we can stay present in a conversation. And this is one of Steven Covey's 7 habits, seek to understand first. Yep. And then be understood. But we do it the other way around. No, wait a second. Yeah, I get it. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Someone asks you a question, you spin it in a way where you give them the answer that you want.
There's that too. Yeah. Or we bombard each other with information.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. How often do I see that happening? It's like, okay, well, that's a lot of interesting information, but it didn't answer the question.
Well, I find that a lot, and even you might find it, so in fact, you probably do, mate, is when, say we ask you a question, what we're genuinely curious about, you start telling us an answer, which we're genuinely interested in, but then you say something that sparks another thought in my head. I then struggle to pay attention to the rest of what you're talking about because I'm dying to ask this next question. Yeah. I mean, so I've been distracted, or it's reminded me of a story or something that I want to now tell you. That happens a lot, I find. Yeah.
So for me, we become a little bit Buddhist here and we go with the flow. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, and it's a different situation. I mean, this is a context of having a discussion, a conversation, an interview kind of thing, and you want to take it to the depths of that you can within this little time frame that we have. But on an everyday basis is to be able to stay, present with a person to say, that has reminded me of something. But whether you decide to bring that up in that moment or not, because what is the eagerness about telling something that's not in relationship to what's going on with the person who's speaking with you? Mm-hmm. It's like what's coming to mind when you made that comment was when you say something about, oh, I had this experience the other day, X, Y, and Z happened, and well, how does the person respond? Oh, that's like my experience.
Yeah.
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 Do you have any tips? Because like I definitely am one of those people. Anyone that's listened to more than one episode will already attest that. But do you have any tips? So if you're sitting having a conversation with someone trying to listen and you're itching, you're like, oh, if I just want to tell them about that thing that
There's
like
sorry, if you go back and watch last week's episode, I meant to actually tell you this. It was about an hour into it. It's on YouTube actually. An hour into it.
Don't watch it.
Ray or something's talking, and you can tell you are dying to say something, but because there's 5 of us on the interview, somebody else talks before you.
Yeah.
And for the next minute and a half, you are so edgy. You're looking about and you're getting fidgety and you're just dying to talk. And I know the whole time thinking, he's not paying attention. He's dying to get his story in here.
There's something curious about that, but when we're in conversation, I mean, of course, being, and I guess you guys are European.
I'm like, teacher, pick me.
Right? And like in our household, there's 7,000 conversations going on at the one time, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And somehow they all kind of, work out in the end, right? And there's goofery that goes on as well in those conversations, and there's seriousness and heartfeltness, and it's, I don't know how anybody from the outside could even follow some of my family conversations, right?
Organized chaos.
Pretty much.
But how do you change that? Like in the moment, do you take a deep breath? Do you try and focus your energy? Do you have any like immediate tips that can? I suppose is that a bit of the ego going on there? I don't.
Well, it's a curious. So here I am with curiosity. Why is it even an issue?
I would just say it's an issue. I don't know if issue is the right word, but I think for me personally, I would like to be a better listener. That's for me. So I feel like if someone's talking, and as I said, even if I'm genuinely interested in what they're saying and I want to hear it all, my mind just goes, oh, I would love to ask them this here. That reminds me. And then I struggle to pay attention to the rest of what they're saying. And I don't want to say it's rude, but I feel it's almost disrespectful that I've asked them a question, they're giving me their insight, and I can't even have the attention span to listen to the full sentence without going off on a tangent.
So for me, in that moment, you either, this is just a silly little practical thing, either you write it down.
Yeah.
So that means that it's been attended to, that little,
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, okay, that's quick. You will find, and there's a curiosity with this as well, that you will find that the many things that you will end up writing down, you don't even want to go back to.
Yeah.
But because it has been attended to, it wasn't as important, and you move back into the flow.
But I was wondering, listen to you guys speak there. I hope I'm not doing it now, but
and on point.
No, but is that, if you have something like that, you're trying to get it out, is that you subconsciously having not resolved whatever it may be, insecurity, not being heard, listen, do you think that's like some part of you trying to like resolve?
Well, there's something to be explored, most definitely. There are a couple of people that are coming to mind that do this, and like this interruption, needing to say something, having to finish their sentence kind of thing. And for some people, it might be a sense of, I have the answer.
Yeah, a bit of a note also.
I know. And even when you say to that person, can you just hold that for a moment? I'll come back to you, and sometimes, that may work, but many times it's like, yeah, but I just want to say, yeah, I know, but I'm actually talking right now. Okay, but I just know something. Yeah, I get it.
Well, honestly, what you're talking about right now is literally, I'm just laughing because not just myself, I feel myself experience that, and I know for a fact lots of other people will have that internally, knowingly or unknowingly, that is happening. And I think that happens more and more now because we've got so much information, because we're literally bombarded with it, and we know more than ever. Don't even know more than ever. We're aware of more than ever, and we're getting so much information coming from all angles. Yeah. That's interesting. That is interesting. I think it's an interesting conversation.
It's a really good point, because there is actually a dishonoring of another person in that process. Not that you intend that to be, and to explore what it might be for you, because it'll be different. Why is it that you need to pull out this information? And you do also become not a good listener. You are now not connected. You're no longer attuned with another person. You're trying to hold on to this thing that you think is like superior, amazing, that you got to say, you got to land it, and you're missing out on everything else that other person is sharing with you. And they're golden moments. Our indigenous elders, on this land have something for listening, which is called Dadirri, Dadirri. It's a beautiful thing to go and read on that, and to know how to be present. And because presence for me is connected also with the land. Presence for me is connected with the things beyond our knowing. So when I sit in presence, with another and with you guys, there is these moments, that we are sharing and also co-creating in this time. And there is, in my heart space, a sacredness to this, and fun and enjoyment, And yes, so what, I've got 6 things that I want to say here.
Yeah, no, we said the same. We've got
You've got 20 questions here. We've not asked any of them.
But Sue and I have used that before, where if you can't come to a solution as a couple or whatever, we did do this thing. We should do it more often. It's an amazing thing to overcome what we just spoke about. So you have pick a pen or something, whatever it is, and you say something. Let's say you're having an issue in your relationship. You just give your opinion. The other person is not allowed to say anything. When you're finished, you just pass the pen over, and then she or he says their part. And it's not about, it goes back to your quest technique.
Yes.
It's not about you justifying, coming back with an answer. It's only one-way communication, which I know seems counterintuitive, was actually very powerful. I'm just telling you how I feel. You're telling me how you feel. We don't need to have answers for it, and you just know responses. And that's actually really worked for us in the past.
Yeah.
You need to try and do that again.
Reminder to self to bring that into play. That's specifically when you're talking about, intimate relationships, intimate other relationships, to be able to navigate sometimes that get a little bit sticky, that we're not feeling that we're heard, or when we are heard, we're misunderstood. One of my neon artworks was, is it something I said? And then the I said is crossed out, and above it is, you heard. Everything is so subjective.
Yeah.
Everything. We could be using the same words, but what that word means to you, what it means to me, set ends.
Yes. So I honestly think conversations, you talk about sound, somatic, etc. I was listening to a TED talk the other day there, and he's the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's the most famous TED talk, or the most viewed TED talk in the world. And he's got a book on sound, and it's about how people use sound, how basically I said everything we do is visual. Architects design things, we look at buildings, but we don't really do things on sound. Marketing now is only just taking advantage of sound. They talk about IBM, what's the IBM logo? They're like, I don't know. What's the sound? It's like dum 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 dum. Straight away. And it's it talks about different marketing strategies. I think it talked about Schweppes. There's a commercial in the 80s that they brought out. It's first, that's it from the 80s. And from there, it was almost like a light bulb moment of oh my God, people are really resonating with this. So he goes on down a bit of a rabbit hole on how sound is so misinterpreted or not used, and how people here think from tone of voice. He talks about 7 sins of talking, and he talks about ego, talks about tone, talks about distraction, all these different things. But really cool, again, talking. It made me open my eyes, but open my ears, and thinking about how powerful sound is, and how much influences what we do and how we feel. And
hugely, you can say to somebody, I love you, and the way I just said it, right?
Yeah.
And they go, because the sound didn't carry.
Yeah, you can say I love you, but it can be vacant.
Yeah, totally. Right. So so it's all of the senses. We communicate strongly with all of our senses. It's I know you said that, but that's not what you meant,
How do you want me to say it?
While you guys were talking, I was dying to say something. All
right, okay, go for it. You've got a choice now. You can either say it or you can die.
Take the pen, Sully. Take the pen.
No, I was. That craze is happening at the moment. I don't know, it's called ADSR or something like that, where people are becoming obsessed with sounds of things. So the opening of a packet, and it's
yeah.
And people are watching. Yeah, I'm what the fuck is that all about? But it's a big craze at the moment.
People do it for relaxation and stuff like that, and people also have an odd fetish with it as well. They have honestly.
There was Name That Sound on the radio many years ago. It was a competition where you could win prizes if you could name the sound.
Oh, really?
You got a little sound bite.
I was randomly listening to radio only yesterday, which that was actually going on. Well, it was is this a human or is this an animal? And I think I got every single one of them wrong. And then it made me think back to my school days where the thing that I was worst at, you know, you had orals and orals, you know,
Yeah.
where you have to like speak French and they'd listen to you. But the ones we had to listen to a tape, it's all starting to make sense now in my case. I was shocking at that. So, you know, if you listen to a story and then you have to answer a question based off the story, I could
Yeah.
I was never able to,
Listen,
like, yeah, I was like, you know, it couldn't go in my brain, like, especially if it was in a foreign language, like if it was in French, like it'd be like, what did you get out of that? And I'd be like, something to do with the sky. And it's like, no, they were on holidays in Spain. I was like, oh.
one thing, obviously creativity, you've mentioned it, and obviously you're a very creative person, but me personally, and I put this question in because I have this phrase, like, I say it myself, I'm not a very creative person, but I know that's untrue. We've all got a creative side in some regard, and I've definitely created things in my time, but how can people find a creative side? Because I know other people would have the same thought, like they instantly think creative, you think art, but I know there's more forms than that.
Yeah, I think that's what happens, is a link to that, first of all. And you know, it's really it's so hard to not be creative.
Yep.
It's really hard to not create. That would take so much energy to not create conversation, connection, to not create clothing that may go together or otherwise.
Yeah. You're looking at me. Are you looking at me when I say that?
Camera's on.
So the thing is appreciating that, you know, creativity is a given. You know, we are birthed from creativity.
Yeah.
We create our lives, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. Everything is, because, you know, to be creative is a verb, it's a doing word. You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, but even on it, like, to be the devil's advocate, when we say, oh, it's not just about art, but also going back to the ABC show with Space 22, none of us that went in would see ourselves as artists. And off the back of the show, the guys put on an art exhibition, and
Correct.
now a lot of them are all painting. And again, it's that subjective of like, well, what makes you an artist? Well, anybody can be an artist. You know, it doesn't have to be a Picasso for you to be an artist, you know?
No.
That barrier, remember, you'll probably know as well, remember, Noula, we all had that barrier going, I can't paint, I can't sing. But after some training and guidance, we were all able to go at it, right?
Well, this is the thing. So when you move from, you know, extend your imagination to realize that everything that you do, whether it's cooking, whether it's gardening, you know, whether it's a hobby, you know, with a musical instrument, is an act of creativity. You know, how well you do it is another story, right? And I would like to take the word artist out of the conversation personally. That's a lot of pressure to consider yourself as an artist. To me, artist is a paying job. I have to make income from my art, is an artist, you know. Artistic, yes. Creative, always, you know. And what is it? It's about how much effort, how much do you want it, is one thing. If you're talking about artist, take it all the way there, right? But creativity, oh my gosh, there are so many, you know, we had that in place before we had colleges and universities, before the Industrial Revolution. That was always there. That was the way that we expressed ourselves, communicated with each other through song, dance, musical instruments. That was the vibe. That's what we did all the time. It's in our DNA. We can't not be that. We can't not want to pick up a piece of paper and fold it in different ways and say, look, I made a square. Isn't that amazing? It was a rectangle, but I made it into a square.
You're like, good boy.
But then to be able to pick up, because we've aligned it too much with realistic, like drawing, we've aligned it too much with realistic representation. But, you know, drawing is more than that. It's doodling, it's mark making. It's an expression that sometimes you can look at some people's expressions on a piece of paper and go, that's so cool. Right. And it's just been done just from their presence and the hand and the instrument, you know, moving over a page. Same thing with, you know, finding your affinity with a particular material, whether it's, you know, paints, sculpture. I'm also a sculptor, so there's some of my sculptures just over there, working with that. And but it is a form of me, in the sense of also me accepting what comes of me, from me. There's nothing in my head that says this is what it's got to look like.
Mm.
No, it comes out. And a lot of my work is, I remember, is ugly. It's not beautiful in the classical sense of beauty, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in the beginning when I first started it.
But it's also the process, which is what you taught us as well.
Yes, it's the process, correct.
Yeah, interesting with, like, let's say Ray would say when he did his first artwork, I think on the show, he's like, oh, it's shit. And I looked at it and I went, holy fuck,
Wow, right.
that's amazing. So it's like also like it's other people perceive it in different ways, but it's the process as well. Like you're not learning, like, it's whatever you put down is whatever you put down. There's no right and wrong. There's no, like, as you were saying, like if you're going to do it to sell, that's a completely different game. And then what we learned on the show was it was probably one of the most visceral experiences or ways to express your emotions and feelings than anything that I've ever experienced before. Because if you're trying to convey pain through words, quite difficult, but through art or even singing, it actually can come out a lot easier than you actually think.
Some of my doodles.
Wow.
It's nothing. Well, it is something, but it's not, This is not fine art, but do you know how much joy I get out of these?
Yeah.
And how have I made these? I've made these out of Harris Farm shopping bags.
But it's also a release, like, if you hang up all that energy and anger or that, man, but it's another form, like the gym or anything else, to let go, right, and just express yourself.
These are what kept me going during COVID, because I didn't have a lot of time to, because we were all shut down, and my practice expanded because I kept seeing people face to face during that time. There wasn't a lot of time for me to do anything where I could immerse myself. Creativity kept me going. When I say creativity, the ability to express myself and play, because you just become immersed, even if it's just for 45 minutes or 1 hour, And it is at the same time, it's exploratory. It's learning new things. Like I've just created this new thing where that's got it's like a needle, but it's got a hollow on it.
Right.
I don't know what they're actually used for, but I put ink in them and I draw with this now, right?
All right, okay.
Because it's the idea of making marks that are non-controllable,
Yep.
I don't want to control the process. It is definitely a process, and I want to experience, the magic of, if something pleasing to the eye comes of it at the end, wonderful. If not, I just paint over it with white.
Yeah. That made me think of Kraftwerk, like the German electronic, like they were pioneers of music. And
that's right.
Yeah, when they started, they didn't feel like there was instruments that could convey what they wanted to musically, so they just started like creating their own musical instruments.
Wow.
And that's where like things like the synthesizer and all that started to come out, just based on putting things together and seeing what came out the other end. So you can obviously apply that to anything in life, right?
So if you want to, for example, I think what happens, one of the blocks is that we feel that being creative or having any artistry in us is innate, that we've either got it or we don't. It's furthest from the truth. It's what you said before, Neil, that you learn, these are skills that we learn, just the way that we picked up learning languages, learning how to speak, or we have to learn how to read. There's nothing innate about reading. So why do we think that that's the case when it comes to creativity? No, you go and learn a skill and have fun with it and be a student, and make loads of mistakes. Those mistakes are going to be serendipitous, without a doubt, that you are going to incorporate into your art. They're the happy accidents that happened, But if you've got in your head that to be, creative or to engage in painting or drawing or whatever, that it needs to be realistic, go learn from somebody who can teach you how to do realism. That is a different thing of its own. It's a different category of training of its own. And our masters took years of training. They would repeat feet for years, just feet, and then hands for years, working off murals before they were able to pull everything together. They didn't have it innately, but they had the desire. That was what was innate. to master this, you know. But from another perspective, that's one thing if that's what you want. But from another thing, if you want playfulness in your life, if you want to learn how to loosen up, if you want to do abstract but meaning with meaning in it, not just slapping things around and occasionally coming up with something pleasing to the eye. No, it's just like there is a process, and it's like engage with it. Do ceramics, do sculpture, work with your body is what's happening. If you want to understand what it is to become present, work with the expressive arts. Do body movement, do dancing, do singing. All right, all of those things. It will change your life, like it did for some of our, participants.
I'm in. You have me sold.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. And we're just
You're
towards
welcome.
the end, but we were going to mention the because movement.
If you want to give a brief overview to the listeners, that'd be great, Noula.
Yeah. So the Because movement, which is my art and mental health foundation. So this is not art therapy. This is about how art, engaging with the expressive arts, can make a difference to our mental and emotional well-being. And it's research-based as well. So we launched the Miracle Tree last Sunday. We had 14 participants, and they went through a little journey with me, which was about exploring a challenge that they had faced in their life, how they overcame that challenge. And from that, what they wanted, what they would like to share with an anonymous other, from which they had a leaf that they then mosaiced, right? And on the back of that, because this is like taking a leaf from someone's book. And then on the back of the leaf, they had their message for an anonymous other. And there will be an installation, and there's going to be, I want to roll this out nationally, is my intention, that there will be a mural of a tree, it's a very big tree with these leaves on it. Then a person will come up to it. So, and there'll be the intention at the moment is that there will be a QR code. They click on the QR code, that the QR code will say, what's your challenge? They'll write the challenge down, choose a leaf that resonates with you. They choose a leaf. What is the message you receive? They write down the message. And then the final question is, how might this help you? And then the intention is, as I gather back this information from the Miracle Tree, is that I can write back to people and say, George, your leaf was picked 6 times this last month, and this is what people said.
Oh, that's class. That's cool.
Cool, right? So
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited that one's launched, because and there's a lot of work to put into that to make it go out nationally. And I want the corporates involved to do it for their team building. So when they do it for their team building, I will also be able to then do it for a community free of charge.
Yeah,
so
that's
there's
very cool.
Miracle trees everywhere.
Oh, wow.
That's a good idea.
You can just picture the ripple effect of that then through
Exactly. So
ways of community, and also people that quite often with mental health or any scenario or grief or whatever it is, you feel like it's I'm the only one that's currently that in the world that is feeling this, but you're not. There could be a George who has gone through the same thing as you, right? Well,
it's a little bit also of your gratitude, because what happens for the participants who went through that journey with me, they were asked to find the qualities that were present during the time that they found the solutions, like how they overcame it. And for some of them, they hadn't even realized what was present. So that was like, oh my gosh, so that built them up even more. The idea of helping another person from their own life story, boof, they go like this again, their heart just expands again. And then knowing that one day that they're going to get responses back. It is a whole,
cyclical.
360.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because every day you wake up with a mental health condition, you're more resilient than you were the day before, which even just look at it from a basic term of that, like you're doing amazing with whatever it is that you have to continue through life and have a job and partners and all. Like, so it is, you do need to pat yourself on the back. We all do, probably more often. But just to close off, we have this fun bit at the end, Noula, which is our quick fire zone, and we ask you 4 questions, and imagine a invisible 30-second clock, which I don't think we've ever stayed within that. As we also show,
showing you a book, sorry.
Your book. Before we go, is that you are that is
yes, you are that is creative.
Right, that is creative, yeah.
Available in all bookstores, I hope.
It's available. You can go online, or you can grab it from me, and I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. And what's that about? Just very quick synopsis.
That's about the question that we were asking about, not being creative, and that one answers that question because you are. And it also has got a lot of different activities that you do along the way, creative activities, as well as whatever the quest is in there. It's about, there's a process in there that you engage with, which is called unfolding your creative self. So I take you through a process so that you can actually see you actually do have your own process. You haven't realized it.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it reminds you of something that you can pick up, work with a bit, and then put it down, and then pick it up again when you need it.
Cool.
If you've hit a creativity block, or you're in a bit of a rush, or you're feeling a bit low or down, or as you were saying, not feeling creative, it's a great one to kind of spark some energy in you again.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you've read the book, right?
Yeah. Well, we have, I mean, there's multiple ways to connect with Noula before we ask the quick fire questions, like you can catch her on the ABC show, which she alone is worth watching with all the amazing things that she shares. There's her book. You can go and see Noula, but you need to give yourself some time, which I found out. She's popular now that, she's a national superstar. Is there any other ways that
workshops? Yep.
Yeah, we've got one. I'm doing one up in Newcastle Sunday week. What's that? Is that the 6th of November or something? Doing face-to-face up in Newcastle.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Good.
And you're on all the socials, aren't you?
I'm on all the socials,
all the socials. Okay, well, let's jump into our quick fire.
Right,
So,
okay.
Noula, number one, when are you at your happiest?
Oh my gosh, when am I at my happiest? If you asked me when am I not at my happiest, would have been an easier question.
You can answer that way if you like.
Yeah, it's really when am I happiest? I just love life so much. I'm happiest right now with you guys. I'm happy. I know that I'm going to do some gardening after you. I know that I'm meeting some people after that. Well,
that makes me that I'm hearing like that curiosity you mentioned, like you're just staying curious. Is that maybe something that
pretty much. I accept that. That would be,
or is that me putting my thought your happiness is
okay. So I've just that I've had a moment to reflect. When I'm at my happiest when I feel connected.
Oh, brilliant. There you go.
Good.
Easy.
That's nice.
Yeah, thank you for that.
The next one is, where is your current mental health out of 10? 11.
What I think, what I think, or what other people think. I think I'm anywhere between a 7 and an 8.
That's good. That's an interesting point, though. Do you think people think your mental health? Well, my opinion is like I think people probably think your mental health is better than it actually is, right? Yeah. People go, oh yeah, he's fine. He's doing great. He must be high, but the reality is probably a bit lower. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I look at, I do lots of things to take, we talk about self-care right now, right? Apart from hydration, which, I'm trying to measure how much I drink by having that water next to me. Movement, definitely, because you can get stuck too much, especially now with this online stuff. I do my infrared saunas, I try to balance, get
Nimbus and Co.
Nimbus and Co. For students across the country.
I love my infrareds. I do take time out for myself, and I don't feel selfish for doing so,
Yeah, good.
And I feel that if I don't do those things, if I don't have, if I don't put myself in the queue of all the things that we, want to do, I'm not such a happy bunny.
Although I don't know if I can believe Noula not being a happy bunny. She's just a bundle of joy. Absolutely love her so much. And what about the world? Out of 10, where do you think we are in terms of mental health awareness?
4.
Yeah. We've had a lot of low scores on that one, right? Haven't we, Gary?
Have I?
Are aware that we're also in Australia, which is probably higher on the scale, but globally, probably we're not quite there.
Last one.
If you had to give people one thing to do every day that would improve their mental health, what would that be?
Guess what? Be curious.
Curious. Be curious.
Practice curiosity. Replace whatever you may be thinking with a curious question.
Oh, Oh, what was the thing we did on the show? Like I learned all
We
what's
did
that? The heart,
the heart, they're the Asian hearts, you know.
the mini heart.
We
And
did.
also, if somebody's speaking, if you don't want to interrupt them, like what we were just talking about, and they say something good, you can go like,
That's right.
no, what am I doing it wrong? You're not supposed to click, but you go like that.
That's right.
Is that how
That's
to do it in the
Poet
poet societies?
Yeah,
The poet.
poets, yeah.
That's
we do
right.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
In
It's
other
like
cultures, that would mean money.
money,
Show
money,
me the money.
Yeah, Muhammad used to do that a lot, where it's
Yeah.
applauding. If you say it like a poignant point, like, you know, it's like, I'm with you, you know, I'm with you, sister.
I'm with you, sister.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
has
Neil,
been
what a
so
pleasure.
much fun. Lovely, totally lovely to meet you, Gary.
Oh yeah, absolute pleasure. Brilliant. Really enjoyed that.
He's all right, isn't he? He's not too bad, Gary. Like, you'd keep him with you, yeah?
No, really cool questions. And, you know, I'm just blessed that I could understand you. And Neil.
One of the few.
He's getting better. Wait until we're on season 12. Like, he's speaking proper English by then. Says the Irishman. Jeez.
Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the audience for taking the time to listen to it as well. Very grateful.
Yeah, brilliant, Noula. Thanks so much.
Right.
Thanks, Neula. Have a lovely
Have a great
weekend.
day. Enjoy your gardening.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Oh, isn't she just
She's funny, man. She's good.
lovely? I just got this really special connection with her, like from the start. She was just honestly one of the most amazing women people I've ever met, just from the heart, and she just led by example, and
More authentic.
yeah, and everybody just piled in behind her, and she's an amazing woman.